Hello everybody and welcome to our studio show here. This time round 16 of MXGP, and we're at the MXGP of state of Goias, right in the central part of Brazil. My guests this week will be Stefan Everts, Shaun Simpson and Antti, and it's been 5 weeks since the last round. So before we go any further, as always, let's take a quick look what happened 5 weeks ago in Lommel. Here's some highlights from MX2 Race 2. After his victory in Moto number 1, Max Antti went to the line in confident mood. But all that was about to change. Down in the waiting zone, prior to the start of the second race, the technicians struggled to get the bike fired into life. As the riders went out on their sighting lap, Antti was left down there, wondering whether he'd actually make the race or not. The officials were giving him as much time as possible, as Antti looked around nervously, wondering whether a possible Grand Prix victory was about to pass him by. Eventually, Jordan fired up the Yamaha and saved the day. And what was a frantic few moments for the bike at Yamaha squad, and Antti was able to take his place on the line. The gate dropped for Moto number 2, but it wasn't the electric start that he'd hoped for, as Valentin Guillo, standing construct KTM, had other ideas. He came across the back of everybody else to get himself well placed inside the top 15 through the first corner. Tixier on the Red Bull KTM was the early leader, with Roman Fevre, Wilbo Nastar, Husqvarna behind, Boutron and then Ferrandis, the first 4. Fevre hounded Tixier, even ran alongside him, tried to take the lead, and eventually found a way through. But it was all too brief, as a couple of corners later, Tixier was back in front. Fevre was down in second. Antti had climbed into third on the number 99 Yamaha and went after Fevre for second, leaving Ferrandis there in 4th position. That was Antti going up the inside of Fevre. And then Antti went after Tixier, and the battle was on for the lead until Antti threw it away. He was able to keep the engine running, rejoin the race, and keep hold of that second position. Fevre and Ferrandis battled it out. Ferrandis making a move at the inside, even without goggles, into third with 4 laps to go. Fevre had to settle for 4th, Boutron 5th, Tim Geiser 6th, but it was another win for Jordi Tixier and Red Bull KTM. But that victory wasn't enough to claim the overall Grand Prix. Instead, Max Antti, who came home in 2nd, claimed enough points to take his first ever Grand Prix victory in MX2. And what was that? A massive turnaround moment for the bike at Yamaha Cosworth squad. And Max Antti became the first British winner at Lommel. He claimed the overall ahead of Tixier and Ferrandis. He was only the ever second Yamaha victory around this circuit as well, but Hurling's now only 57 points clear of Jordi Tixier. Max Antti stood proudly on the top step of the podium. He was flanked by Tixier and Ferrandis. It was a great day here in Belgium. Right, my first guest is here, Stefan Everts, team manager from Red Bull KTM Factory Racing MX2. But before we start with Stefan, I want to just show a couple of clips here as a quick reminder as to what has brought us to this stage of the championship, particularly in the MX2 title chase so far.
Already will be 3 in a row, so it's pretty cool. You know, I had some problems this year, some injuries and stuff, so it's great to hopefully finish off the title already and look at, you know, the dream was to win it in Lommel, but, you know, better take it as early as possible if I don't get injured by Lockett or something, or don't happen some strange things.
Still having the GP guys on mini bikes as well racing or not?
We have the future stars, the 85 riders, which some of the GP stars rides with him, especially Jeffrey. He's looking forward to do that. You know, that's the main race for him that day. That's the 85s. So that's quite fun to see the big guy on a small bike.
Yeah. Right, Stefan Everts joins me now. Stefan, obviously, at that time, you know, with your charity event and the comments after Finland MX2 GP, where Jeffrey was a winner, of course, no one could have predicted what was going to happen, you know, in terms of him getting injured. And those comments there from him, you know, as long as I don't do anything stupid and blah, 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 they're just going to ring on and on and on. So, you know, in terms of the championship, that whole episode, strange scenario, a strange set of events, don't you think, in the fight for the championship now?
Yeah, it is. You know, it's very sad what happened. You know, and especially in my personal position, you know, that this happened on the charity race. You know, it was the most baddest sequence that you can think of, and you know, Jeffrey showed his great big heart to come and do the charity race for the charities, you know, and then this happened, you know. It's very, very bad to see, and you know, it's part of our sport, injuries, and it just happened on the wrong moment on the wrong motorcycle, and that's just too bad, you know. You know, people can give now a lot of critics to that, and
but it's not like he never did it before either.
No, he did it every year. You know, he really enjoyed doing this 85 race, and you know, he did it with a big smile and a big pleasure. He was very motivated that day and to have fun. And you know, the first couple of laps on the bike went good. He didn't take any risk. You know, everyone saw that he was just riding his pace. And Van Moosdijk was leading that race, and he was just too fast for Jeffrey. And I think he settled down and he just was trying to enjoy his riding. And then, you know, lightning struck him, and he got this big injury.
And obviously he was hoping to be back maybe for this weekend. Certainly we're expecting Mexico, even though nobody's putting on the pressure. You know, coming back from a broken femur, no one's expecting to ride. But from Jeffrey, if he wants to win the World Championship, you kind of almost expect him to want to be in Mexico next week. But he's not here this weekend. Is it a case of him not ready? Because the press release came through very late, didn't it? Thursday morning when I arrived in Sao Paulo airport. I saw the press release come through, no Jeffrey in Brazil. Well,
from the beginning on, you know, the talks was to be back in Mexico, but, you know, I think it would have been better to be here and to keep the title chances open as big as possible. And, you know, the doctor couldn't give him green light. You know, the injury by itself was not healed enough. It's not strong enough. And he said he advised him not to ride at least this weekend. And we will see beginning next weekend if there's still a small chance to be in Mexico, but for sure, you know, it will be harder and tougher for him to still keep the title in his how I have to say, in his margin.
Yeah, because obviously at the moment Jeffrey's still 57 points of Jordi Tixier's teammate, and if Jordi is to win 2 races here, that means it's 7 points going into the final round, which makes it more difficult for Jeffrey, is pretty much what you're saying, Stefan, to maintain that gap. It's going to be easier maybe for Jordi to, you know, score 7 or 8 points more than Jeffrey in that respect, whereas if Jeffrey could have raced here today, or this weekend, he can take 10 points. That makes it more difficult for Jordi going into the next round. We've just got our onboard camera going on behind us. I think we've got Alexander Tonkov and Jeremy Van Hoorbeek doing it this weekend. But what about Jordi? So obviously we can't say whether Jeffrey's going to be in Mexico, yes or no. So we'll worry about that next week. But what about Jordi? Still 57 points down. Talk of him saying, well, you know, not him, but if he just arrives at these 2 races, he's automatically going to be world champion. But he's not. He's still 57 points down. He's got to score 58 points to be world champion here and in Mexico. Yeah,
that's true. You know, it's motocross, and it's a sport, and many things can change really quick in this sport, and we've seen it to Jeffrey, you know. But yeah, with Jordi, since, you know, the last 4 rounds, he's changed quite a bit mentally. He looked stronger in his head, and he looks more sure on the bike, and I think you know, he will be doing good. I don't expect him to win all motos, but I think he will be up there in the front. You know, an injury can also strike him, and but we will see. I think his chances are very big, you know, to take this title.
How's he feeling in himself? Is he quite relaxed? He seems to be enjoying the elevated status that he has, which is completely different to what he had to put up with 12 months ago when Jeffrey went out, you know, Matterley and Belgium.
Yeah, and in the beginning that was a little bit Jordi's problem when he was in the main spotlight. You know, he faded away a little bit. Mentally, he was not strong enough for that. And you know, after you know, Jeffrey had the injury, he was there racing alone in the team. All the spotlight went again to him, and he managed to be strong. I think he finally learned to be in that position and not to care too much about everything, and just go and race and race at his best.
Strange though, isn't it, in terms of the battle for the championship? Jeffrey Hurling's number 84, 20 years ago in 1984, that whole Michele Rinaldi, Corrado Maddi thing.
Maddie was leading the championship going into the final round, just needed a few points to be world champion, broken leg. Jeffrey Hurling's 20 years on, broken leg, and, you know, Tixiate's not done for him. It's definitely going to go to the final round, whatever happens. But it's strange how things like this happen occasionally, isn't it, in terms of, you know, whether it's superstitious nature or just a turn of events.
I don't know. For me, you know, it's a destiny. You know,
Yeah.
I think our destiny is set, and whatever you try to change that destiny, it will not happen. And you know, if it's decided above here that Tixia will be the new champion, then it will be like this. If it will be Jeffrey, then Jeffrey will be there next week and he will win it, or something will happen to to Jordy. That's something we know. But I believe really in the destiny of everyone, and that's how I've lived my life and raced my life, you know.
All right, and really quickly, just final question. Antonio Cairoli leading MXGP. He could win his 8th title this weekend if all things go well in the first race or even the second race, but on the verge of his 8th title, from your own experience, does it get easier having to deal with just about to be world champion one more time, or will he go through the same sets of emotions that he did when he won his first one?
You know, winning every year, in the case of Tony, every year almost a title, it's always different. Each title is different. You win, you go through different emotions. You know, different things happen through the year, and I think especially for Antonio this year has been a very emotional year. What happened on his private life, you know, and I think if he will win this championship, his 8th championship, it will have special memories to this special title, you know, and. You know, he's again relaxed as normal, and he's focused, and yeah, he's enjoying his riding. But like I say, this will be, I think, a special championship, this 8th one.
Okay. Well, look, Stefan Everts, team manager, Red Bull KTM Factory Racing MX2. Thanks for joining us for now. My next guest has arrived, but before we welcome Shaun Simpson, again, it was 5 weeks ago since the last MXGP round in Belgium at Lommel. So let's remind ourselves what happened last time out. Here's some highlights from MX2 Race 2, the Grand Prix of Belgium.
MXGP Race 2. Antonio Cairoli thought he pulled the foxhole shot, but out of nowhere, 6.64, Philip Bengtsson stole the march and claimed his first foxhole shot of the year. Cairoli was pushed to second as everybody else gave chase. Team Ferris on board here on the Ice 1 Red Bull Husqvarna, but he was soon pushed back as Van Horbik came through. Cairoli made this pass at the inside of the Belgian to go into second place on what was a very difficult sand circuit indeed. And then lap 3, scrubbing neatly past the Swede, Tony Cairoli was through into the lead. Simpson was there in second. Deruva was having a great ride. He held third for a lap before being pushed back to fourth. And a little bit down the field, Matis Caro crashed out spectacularly from 15th. The two Belgians, Strybos and Van Horbik, battled over 8th and 9th. It's Tony Cairoli tried to pull clear once more. Ken de Dijker, a resurgent Ken de Dijker on the Red Bull KTM, was coming into his own in the tough sandy conditions. He held third for much of the race and was closing in fast on the number 24 of Shaun Simpson. As the rains started to fall in the last part of the race, the two Kawasaki's of Frossard and Paulin battled over 4th place for the last few laps, as Deruva, also living these conditions, eventually split the Kawasaki's on the final lap. Cairoli throwing his goggles away with just a couple of laps to go. And Paulin eventually won out the battle of the Kawasaki's, coming home in 4th. Van Horbik, again, blood streaming from that left eye. Eventually dropped down to 9th behind Kevin Strybos. Tony Cairoli, though, came home to win Moto number 2 ahead of Ken de Dijker, making it a Red Bull KTM 1-2 in the second moto, and that would also mirror the podium. Congratulations all round from the two friends and teammates. Shaun Simpson, third in the race, third overall in the Grand Prix as well. His first podium since Leron 2013. Cairoli has 81 points now over Jeremy Van Horbik with 2 races and 4 rounds to go. But for Cairoli, his 9th Grand Prix win of the season, 72 GP wins in his pocket, and his 3rd win here at Lommel.
Well, they were highlights from race 2 in MXGP at the MX Grand Prix of Belgium just 5 weeks ago. It's very rare we get a 5-week break in our calendar, but Shaun Simpson, Hitachi Construction Machinery KTM UK, joins me again. And Shaun was our guest on the first show in Qatar this year, and back then we were talking about his GP win in Lierop, the new era as well. He was the last winner in MX1 and with the start of the new era in MXGP. And you know, 15 GPs on, we're talking about you again. Another podium in Lommel, from as we've just seen from the clip. How was that weekend for you?
It was great. I mean, there was a lot of hype coming in with social media and things these days. Everyone's saying, oh, you know, the sand's coming up. You know, you're looking for a good result, which I was. Yeah. I wasn't going to lie. I was really looking forward to it all season. We don't get much sand these days in GPs. I think Finland's probably the sandiest one before, and I had a good result there. So I was looking forward to it. I didn't want to put too much pressure on myself. I just wanted to go out a couple of top 5s. The same sort of goal as I had in Lierop, and you know, I came away with a 3rd place on the podium, so I was, you know, over the moon.
I watched the studio show again last night from Qatar, and one of the main priorities, one of your main focuses from what I could gather from there was to almost put yourself back in the shop window again, start to get some kind of consistency back. Seems to be happening for you this year in MXGP in particular.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's been my my main goal all along. You know, I pride myself on being consistent, and you know, the last few years I've struggled a little bit with that consistency for one reason or another. And you know, Qatar was our only DNF of the year, or not even a DNF. I did finish, but outside the points due to a small mechanical, and that was a shame. But since then, we haven't had any you know, problems at all. And I have been consistent. I have been there. I've been inside the top 5, and you know, finished off the last GP with a podium. It's great, so I'm looking to finish strong, you know, here in Mexico and Brazil.
Well, you were saying, again, from the previous live show, 6th to 8th is probably where you expected you to be. You're sitting 5th in the championship at the moment. We'll talk about that again in a moment. But as far as your consistency, out of the last 20 motos, you've either been 10th or higher 16 times out of that period of time. I mean, that's a pretty good strike rate, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously you've seen it with Jeremy Van Horbeek. He was obviously right up there, and he had, you know, I think it was 9 or 10 podiums in a row, and that's eventually where I want to aim for myself. But steadily just progressing up there, and you know, everyone knows that points make prizes, and to be there at the end of the year with a shot at a championship or a top 5 in the world, you know, that's where I want it to be. And as you say, I'd been steadily putting the results in, and you know, just Mr. Consistent, really, just really just plugging away every week, hard work through the week, and you know, it was showing at the weekend. So,
well, just looking at the last results recently, maybe the last 8-10 motos, you can see that kind of form has been coming in, particularly Finland. You know, Finland, you got 3rd in the 2nd moto. Okay, it was a sand race. It's a little bit stereotypical of you at the moment, you know, winning the Lierop and winning or getting 3rd in Lommel, for instance. But, you know, we go to Finland and suddenly it's like, boom, 3rd place. Never went anywhere. I'm still here and I'm still consistent, but your first podium ride of the year, really.
yeah, it was. I showed already on Saturday that, you know, I was, you know, capable of them results. I had a 3rd place on Saturday in the heat race, and I wouldn't say that Finland suited me much more than anybody else, really. It wasn't deep sand, but what you can see by the clip here is it's technical. There's bumps, there's ruts, there's, you know, the suspension setup, everything needs to be right for that kind of track, and it's slick, and, you know, some of the turns like this one here, wasn't much grip, and it was all about, you know, riding your bike well. You know, the 2nd race, I didn't actually ride what I thought was great. You know, you see the massive gaggle of riders behind me there. I was, you know, not holding them up. I was just doing enough to stay in front of them.
Yeah. And that track as well, when you arrive there, it's very flat, isn't it, in its nature? It's that 1 up, 1 down section over the far side, but it gets very choppy very quickly.
It does, yeah. But, you know, even the track here in Brazil, it's like, it's been rotivated, it's been, you know, cultivated up, and, you know, them sort of tracks I really enjoy as well. I don't like it when it's blue groove, hard pack, and everyone's going the same sort of speed.
Well, you're back up to 5th now in points. You got 9 points advantage on Stephen Frossard. I'm guessing there's kind of a goal plan, but we don't really know how things pan out. It depends how the gate drops and what happens going through the first turn. But, you know, coming into the final 2 GPs of the season here and then Leon, Mexico in a week's time, is it just to go out and just score as many points as Frossard, just, you know, to keep that gap? Or, you know, is there... Because obviously the heat is going to maybe play a part as well, isn't it? And a track that's pretty supercrossy. Of
course. Like, you know, the aim in the game is to finish 5th in the championship. And I'll be doing everything I can to get that place. But I will be having my eyes on where Stephen is and, you know, how the points are looking, but the ultimate goal is just to go out, give 110%, and, you know, ideally I'd like to be in front of him in all the motos. That'd be great, and I wouldn't have to worry about a thing, but he's going to ride well. He's going to want that 5th place as well. You know, top 5 in the world's not a bad thing to have on your CV again, and, you know, I'd like it probably more than anyone right now.
And before I let you go, just real quick, because I've not spoken to anybody yet in terms of how is the track. I watched the MX2 free practice. It was still a little bit slick and hard in places and a bit boggy in places. You guys went out, some of that mud been cleared out of the way. Did it ride okay?
It rode great. I was really surprised, actually. A lot of the MX2 guys were riding outside lines purely because it was drier out there and they could get the momentum to carry themselves over the jumps. But we've sort of made some inside line now, so there's like 2 or 3 lines on most corners. You know, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be technical, rough, tough, and plenty of jumps for the crowd, so should be good too.
Good. Well, look, obviously we wish you all the best now for the final 2 rounds of the season. Hopefully that top 5 is going to be yours by the time we leave Mexico. Shaun Simpson, thanks for joining us here this weekend, and as I said, all the best to him. Right, before we meet our next guest, it's competition time again, folks. Don't forget your chance to win this weekend. Quite a few goodies. If you guess the top 3 riders correctly in MXGP and MX2, you get to win MXGP, the official video game, MXGP TV access. Alpine Star goodies back on the menu this week as well. You can see their baseball cap, the rucksack, the earphones as well. So don't forget, submit your guess by visiting the MXGP Facebook page. And don't forget as well, the only place you can watch 2 days live from the Monster Energy FIM Monster Energy Motocross of Nations in Latvia in September. That means qualifying races and the live races is on MXGPTV.com. So make sure you take advantage of that. Right, my final guest is here, and Antti Pirinen, team manager for Red Bull Ice One Husqvarna Factory Racing, joins me now. Seems like a long time since I last had you in the studio, but I've had both your riders in this year. Welcome. And obviously, Husqvarna Factory Racing back in MXGP for the first time in a very long time, and right in at the sharp end as well, back in World Championship Motocross Racing. And from the very beginning, you know, it looks impressive. The actual team, the people behind it, you know, it looks, like I say, impressive, and there's presence about you, first of all. From Husqvarna's point of view, it's the best way to come back racing, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I need to say that the comeback for Husqvarna and for us to bring the brand to the paddock has been great. You know, like all the fans, another team, sponsors, everybody has been excited, and yeah, on that side it has been a great, and also we delivered some good results, but we had a lot of bad luck with the riders' injuries, so the final outcome was not the best one.
Well, I was going to say, started okay, but in terms of the season, you know, your riders, Todd Waters and Tyla Rattray, haven't had the best of luck, have they? Maybe just tell us a few things about that, the way their season has gone, and I guess how disappointed you guys were, really.
Yeah, it is like Todd Waters was the rookie to MXGP and coming to Europe, you know, and he started out actually very well, you know. After 5 GPs, he was 6th on the points. So couldn't expect more, but he had a very, very unfortunate accident in a training. 3 guys was behind the jump, and he was the last one landing there, you know, and broke the leg. And yeah, the season was basically over, and now he's back in training, and now he's doing good, and step by step getting better again. And regarding Tyla, of course, he knew Europe. He was a world champion here, but he didn't have the best start, of course, you know, when he broke the finger in the opening GP in Qatar, but then he fought back off it hard, and eventually in England he was finishing 4th. So we were hoping that, okay, now it starts to come, and the results what everybody, of course, was looking for, but yeah, bad luck again struck with him, and he had another injury and trying to come back as fast as he could, and another one, so it was very unfortunate, but there was some highlights, you know, like Tyla did the 4th, you know, and Todd was starting out the season well, so it was not only downhill, but overall result is not, of course, what we expect.
Yeah, well, we have some clips actually from the guys before they got injured, after they got injured. Let's talk about Todd Waters first of all. obviously not knowing any of the circuits, first year for him, so Qatar he didn't know he had that big crash, I know, in qualifying, but he managed to race the next day. Thailand, he got I think a 6th in one of the races there, he got a 7th in Brazil, for instance, and all tracks that he's never ridden on. And I guess from my side and, you know, from other people in the industry, we saw his potential at the Motocross of Nations last year in Germany. I'm guessing that's why you kind of signed him as well. But, you know, for him, he seemed to settle down really, really quickly, didn't he? Embraced MXGP life.
Yeah, definitely. I saw on him when we signed him that he has the talent and the technique, but on a way, you know, he definitely surprised me that his working ethic is really strong, and he adapted to Europe, you know, which is quite a big difference to Australia. And yeah, I need to admit that I was quite surprised eventually how good the kid is, and even now after the injury, you know, he's training hard and putting even the bad days into positive days. So yeah, only positive things to say of him.
And I guess from Todd's point of view, not really knowing how the best guys are, like a Kai Rowley, like a Paul, and like a Sal, for instance, these guys coming in blind, really. A race like this in Brazil so early on in his MXGP career, running with those guys, I guess he would have gained a lot of confidence in there as well. Even if he ran with them for 2 or 3 laps, or if it was for like 2 or 3 minutes, you know, you could actually, as a rider, take good confidence from that, can't you?
Yeah, definitely. You know, those are the races, you know, when you can be for a while, you know, battling with the top 5 guys, you know, those are the races actually which brings you forward, and you reach another level and you make the step forward. And yeah, he was doing well, but let's say like beginning of the year, even Qatar was a big crash on the qualifying, and the season didn't start the easiest way, but still he fought through, and when he can get the confidence, you know, for sure he will be in the future one of the front runners in MXGP.
And how's he at the moment? How's his progress? Is he back on a bike yet?
Yeah, he has been 3 weeks now back on the bike, and the leg is good, you know, it's not giving any troubles, no pain, not even sore, so he's building well, but okay, he was 4 months out, so it's too early for racing, and better to come back. He wants to come back when he's fully fit and can again go and challenge the front guys.
And just briefly, Tyla Rattray, obviously you mentioned in Qatar he had that hand injury. We didn't see him again until Trentino, and then, you know, he started to, you know, show some kind of form. And at Matterley Basin, you know, he showed us all kind of what he was semi-capable of. 4th overall. Okay, a little bit off the pace of Kai Rowley, but it was 2 good solid rides for him to get himself a decent result, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. The season, like I told you, started out so difficult, and that's the worst for a rider, of course, to start out injured. But he was putting the work in day out, and he came back hard, you know, in England, and that was a pleasure for all of us to see. But yeah, it was just basically bad luck, you know. Then he immediately weekend after had a heavy hit in Erne, you know, a crash on a warm-up. So those things, you know, sometimes it's not on our hands, and Tyla was fighting hard, but yeah, when you get injured, you know, that's always not the best way to race.
Obviously, we know he's not with you guys now for the rest of the season. Obviously, injuries haven't healed up quite as well as expected, that kind of thing. But while Todd's been out and while Tyler's been out on and off during the season, you've had some good fill-in riders. I know it's not your aim as a team to think about who are the fill-in riders going to be when or if our guys are injured. But Nathan Watson did very well when he came in, didn't he? But also Dean Ferris.
Yeah, definitely, you know, like...
Talk about Nathan first.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Nathan, he's a young kid, you know, no experience on a GP, and then he's coming to this level, you know, basically the best riders of the world in MXGP, and the young kid is coming and matching their speed basically in a time training, qualifying, and even on the race the first 10 minutes. So was a big surprise for me, and actually like to have him on as a fill-in, you know, I could never expect that he's gonna bring us such a positive feeling and that excitement, that he was really challenging hard, and I tell you that that boy has some future, you know, and that technique and the talent what he has. And of course Dean Ferris, you know, coming back from US, and he was also injured, and then he needed to build up his form, but he has been all the time very motivated, and just putting all in basically in all of the races. Even in Finland, you know, he was in the battle for podium. He lost it on the last lap, and man, he told to me after 15 minutes that he was totally wasted and just so tired. But
yeah, because Sweden actually for Ferry, sorry to Sweden for him wasn't the fairy tale return to MXGP that he wanted, and obviously he hadn't raced anyway. It was his first race back from injury. But here, you know, when I had him on the studio show a couple of weeks back, I think in Belgium, you know, he was sort of saying, you know, I said, oh, the last few corners. It was the last lap, last corner pretty much when he lost the podium. He didn't know at that point that he was, you know, on the podium.
Yeah, the things were on that last lap just changing so much, but actually the end result didn't change because he had all in, and like I told, after 15 minutes he felt already very tired. But okay, he turned it around very fast after Sweden, you know, to Finland already on the battle for podium, and since that he has been training very well, and it has been a pleasure to work with Dean. You know, he listens well, and he has done a great steps, and I believe he will be in battle for podium also on these last 2 GPs.
It's not very often we have a 5-week break in MXGP World Championship. Some people have embraced it and said, yeah, we need the break. Some people are frustrated because maybe they were finding the form and now they disappear for 5 weeks, and maybe there's a worry that when they come back they don't quite have that level because they're maybe relaxed a little bit in that period of time. But I guess for someone like Dean Ferris, who's coming back from an injury anyway, not having races or MXGP races to go to, he's been able to focus on ride and train and maybe get himself up to another level coming into the final 2 MXGPs of the year. What do you think?
I think actually like that, you know, he was able to put a proper 4 weeks training in, you know, and we did also some races like Galdorf, the old GP track, and German championship there, and he won it. So 1 second motor there and second overall. So it was a good as a training, and I see his progress. You know, he's getting better and better. So looking forward to these 2 races, you know, with him, and I think he can be battle for the podium. I believe like that.
And what about 2015? Have you decided your final rider lineup yet, or are you close to making that decision and signing whoever you need to, you know, to welcome on board for next year? How's it going in terms of at least talking to people at the moment?
Basically, we are very far, you know, like our lineup is more or less clear, and quite soon we will announce it, and yeah, I'm excited about it. You know, it's 2015, it's a new chances, and let's say like the team has progressed well, and first year as a factory team, you know, we were able to find our way and really improve many things, and I think we are on a very top level now, and the goal is to just increase it all the time, and with the factory and also with the team owner Kimi Räikkönen, you know, we are all excited to just step by step to go forward and try to reach the top.
All right, well, Antti Pirinen, thanks for joining us here, of course, team manager, Red Bull Ice One, Husqvarna Factory Racing. And that's it for our studio show this weekend. And when you watch the races tomorrow, it could be a very big weekend for Antonio Cairoli. Of course, he is on the verge of clinching his 8th FIM Motocross World title in MXGP. And we'll be back next week at the MXGP of Mexico in Leon. Of course, the MX2 World Championship is still to be decided, so it could be a very very big weekend either for Jordi Tixier or Jeffrey Hurlings if he returns to action next week. So that's it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in Mexico in 1 week's time. Bye for now. Cheers, mate.